Hey, hey.
Okay, we will open the June 15th, 2022 Bridgewater Finance Committee meeting at 7:04 p.m. Our first order of business is the approval of the meeting minutes from our last meeting. Hopefully everybody's had time to take a look at them. Do we have any questions, comments, amendments? The motion.
Motion to approve?
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Josh, if you could roll call, please.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you, everyone. Moving on to our next order of business, which is public comments. I would ask that if we have public comment, that you state your name and address. Do we have any public comment at this time? Okay, just one more call for public comments. All right, not hearing any, we will move on to our first order of business for the evening, FY 22-069, Water SDC System Development. Tony or Michael?
What we have Doug Gardner, who has prepared the rate study in conjunction with information that we provide. I'll let him walk us through it. We've separated the two orders, one for systems development and one for the water rates. And he can walk you through, as he did with the council subcommittee. He'll walk you through as he did them. Doug?
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna share a screen, but it's disabled, so I cannot.
You should be able to now.
All right, great. So I'm going to put up a copy of the report, and then we can just walk through the various schedules so you can see this report in front of you. Can you
Make it bigger, please?
Bigger?
Like, can you maybe zoom in a little bit? Thank you.
That's too big on my screen now. That's about it. That's about it.
Is that okay? Is that better?
That's
Yes.
good, Mr. Gardner, thank you.
Okay. So probably 6 months or so ago, the town contacted me to discuss updating the system development charge for both water and sewer. Tonight we're just discussing the water portion of that. So the system development charge is a charge that would be applicable to new customers buying into the water system. So if you're going to put up a new house, you're going to put up a new subdivision, in order to hook into the system, you have to pay a fee. And that fee is designed to recover the costs that the other customers have put up or have invested in the system in prior years. So the fee is based on the fixed assets of the fund. So in this case, the water fund. So our first goal was to update the fixed assets in order to have the most current information. So we took your audited financial statements, the fixed assets from there, made a couple changes and came up and determined what the original cost of the system was. That was just a little under $15 million. We then have to determine the, and let me get the, yeah, I'm sorry, 15 was incorrect. Can you see the schedule in front of you? Is it too large?
It's good.
Okay, so I'm going to shrink it down just a bit to see if we can get. Is that too small?
Not for me. Any other?
No, we can see the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, I just want to make sure you see the entire spreadsheet. So anyways, we have to determine the original cost. And we break it down between the various categories that GASB 34 has established for municipalities. So we determined that we have the land. I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but we came up with that the original cost of the water system is $62 million. We then have to determine what the accumulated depreciation is for the system. So we go through all the various calculations, and we've determined that the accumulated depreciation is a little over 12.5 million. Subtract that from the 62 million, and the net book value, that is original cost less depreciation, is 49,614,000 and change. So this is our starting point. We then and we carry that through. We then have to back out certain costs that are that apply to the distribution system. So we back out those costs and we come up with the net investment. We then have to take out the principal for any outstanding debt, and that gives us our equity investment in the system. Divide that by the number of customers. Number of customers is 7,835. The equivalent units are 9,437. And what the equivalent units are, if you have a connection that's larger, or if you have a meter that's larger than a 5/8 inch connection, it has a greater factor than 1, because that meter will allow you to flow more water. So therefore, because you're allowed to flow more water, there are additional costs associated with that meter. You have to have larger facilities. You might have to have additional employees. That's more chemicals involved in the treatment. So you build in a factor, and that's what the total equivalents are. So divide the net equity or the equity investment by the number of equivalents, and that gives you your net investment for a 1-inch service. So we're recommending that anybody who's going to build a home, or the per connection fee for a residential home would be $3,482. And we'd probably recommend rounding that up to $3,500. And then, as I mentioned, we have the flow factor equivalent. So a 1.5 inch connection can flow 5 times the amount of water. These ratios are all established by the American Water Works Association. So it would be the $3,482 multiplied by 5 and 17,411. And then as you have larger connections, the charge goes up. Now, these fees are all established by the American Water Works Association. They're widely used in Massachusetts and other communities throughout the country. So we're not breaking any new ground here. We're simply, and you do have a system development charge in place, we're simply updating the charges based on the most current information. And the reason that we're updating at this point is you've invested a tremendous amount of money in the new treatment plant. And that investment in the system has driven the costs of your system up, which means the cost to buy into the system has also increased. So if you have a customer that is putting in, say, a 2-inch connection into their business, but they also have to put in a fire line, which would be a 6-inch connection, they would have 2 charges. They would have the $27,000 charge here, and then they would have an additional charge for $174,000. Whenever you put a fire line into a business, that is a separate tap into the main. It does not come off the domestic water service. So that, depending on the size of the tap, it's a 6-inch connection that can flow 50 times the amount of water that the 1-inch connection will flow. So therefore, it's 50 times the 3482, and it comes out to the 174,000. Now, we also have, if a department or if a business is going to expand their business, or if a homeowner is adding on an addition to the property and adding 2 or 3 more bedrooms, they would pay a fee for the additional ability to draw from the water system. And that's known as the equivalent residential unit. And we've come up with those charges as well. And they're outlined in, I believe in the exhibit.
You looking for the schedule, Doug?
Yeah, I don't see it here. Okay. But as I mentioned, there would be additional fees if you're adding additional bedrooms. If a restaurant is adding on a new room and they're adding, say, 50 seats to their business, they would pay a per seat fee. And that's all because they now have the ability to draw more water from the system. Yes, they've been paying their bill and they've invested in the system, but now they're going to be taking the potential, well, they will be taking a larger portion of the system, and therefore they should pay an additional fee. These system development charges, they are all one-time fees payable before the house is built. So when the building permit needs to be signed, the system development charge must be paid.
Do we have questions for Doug on some of the methodology or just general? I turn it back to you, Nate.
What is the current SDC charge, Tony?
What's that?
I said, what is the current charge? What is the current system development charge?
Doug, do you have those in front of you?
I don't. If you bear with me a second, I can get them.
There would be a significant change in the larger projects. I think the single houses, that 1 inch, I think is
Yeah.
around $2,400.
Okay.
Yes, that's what I have for notes. Those are about $2,400.
Currently for a 1 inch residential connection. Okay.
Yep.
How about for a fire line for a 6 inch? Do you know that?
I am looking. They're nominal. The reason they're nominal is because back the last time that this was looked at in 2017, you didn't have a new water treatment plant coming online. So your net book value on your fixed assets was quite low. And therefore you couldn't justify the buy-in to the system cost. So let's say they were as low as $3,000, but we've now invested millions and millions of dollars that have driven up the buy-in, and therefore the calculation arrives at the numbers that Doug is presenting.
And I have the numbers right here, Tony.
Thank you, sir.
So a fire line service is $3,000 presently. And then the fees are structured. You have subdivision fees, you have single residential fees, you have entrance fees into the distribution system, water impact reviews, and a lot of other charges. But the fire service right now is a flat fee of $3,000. We're recommending that it be based on the equivalent rate method, and the larger connection, the larger the fee.
I thought I read somewhere too, so all dedicated fire services are charged a separate system development charge based on the connection size. Um,
Well, that may be, you may be thinking of the private fire protection annual fee.
Yep.
And that is an annual fee, what you might call a readiness to serve charge. Those lines, as I mentioned earlier, are tapped off the main and they are unmetered. So the annual fee is designed to recover the costs associated with that, even though they will in likelihood not use any water. So it's known as a readiness to serve charge or readiness to serve fee. And that's an annual fee. And I believe it is ends at $40 for a 2-inch connection, up to $580 for a 10-inch connection. And if you have a private hydrant, that's $250. And those are annual fees. And we'll be making recommendations to increase those fees as part of the water rate study, which we're going to discuss after the system development charge.
Mr. Chairman?
Sorry, go ahead.
I just have a quick couple of questions. So if I'm hearing this right, this is only going to apply to houses or structures that are now just, when this fee structure is put in place, this would only apply to projects that are getting ready to start as opposed to ones that might actually be in process or just about be completed. Is that correct?
The ones that are in process should have already paid a fee.
Okay.
So
Which would have been, yeah, it would have been under the old schedule.
under
Okay.
the old schedule, correct?
Yeah, we're gonna set these in effect on a particular date, and then permits pulled from that date, this would apply.
Okay, so there's no chance of it being retroactively put in place to any projects that were sort of on the cusp of being in process or getting ready to be in process at the time the rates are put in place. So we're not going to retroactively charge these folks and say, hey, we're going to have to be charged $1,500, but now you're going to be paying $3,400. That's my only concern is the overlap.
No, we would not do that.
You cannot do that.
All right.
I just have a couple of follow-up questions along the lines of MJ's. Just so I understand, this is for new developments, not current standing homes. Is
Correct.
that correct?
Correct.
That is
That is
correct.
correct.
Okay, and then with respect to the fees, I'm assuming that the fire department would have to come out and inspect. Are those fees are there those fees tied into that already, or this is just the water component?
These would be through likely through the building department or the Department of Public Works, that when they come in and they fill out the and they have to fill out all their permits and whatnot, this would be a fee that they would have to pay before the building permit would be issued.
And it would.
Okay, I'm sorry, please continue.
Yeah, it just, one thing that's important, and I know Doug probably was gonna cover this, but let me just jump in on it. These fees go into the Water Enterprise Fund. They don't go into the general fund, and they can only be used, they're reserved, and they can only be used for capital improvements. They can't be used for operational costs.
That is
Okay.
correct.
I want to apologize. I should have been more clear with my question. Perhaps my question might not even be applicable. I guess I'm just thinking about the fire sprinkler systems. So if a new development applies for to put in sprinkler systems, I'm assuming that once they're installed, they have to be checked off by the fire department. I'm assuming. Just to make sure that they're operational, they're installed correctly, and I'm assuming there's a charge for that. Are any of those charges that may be applicable that someone would need to pay the fire department? Is that weaved in? Are those fees attached to the current fees that's existing now?
Not in this discussion under system development charges, no.
Okay.
But Tony, I wonder if they would fall under, probably the annual fee.
And
No.
that's where I think Doug can allude to those fees. And then there are certain fees that the fire department charges if they have to go out and do inspections.
That would be an inspectional fee
Right.
at the time when everything is installed. They would come
Mhm.
out, and I'm not sure if it would be DPW or if it would be fire or a different, or what department. But
It's
somebody
fire.
would come out, okay, so they would come out, inspect it,
Building
and then-
inspector and fire.
sign off on it, and the fee would have to be paid before the building permit would be issued.
And just out of curiosity, since you thank you for the response. Has there been any discussions to maybe have an all-inclusive fee that, someone who's a new developer or someone who's building a house will see one fee that consists of this project, inspections to follow? Has there been discussions about that?
No, they have not.
They have not, and my only concern with that would be if the fire department comes out to inspect, that money would have to go to the general fund, whereas inspection fees that pertain to the water department would have to be allocated to the enterprise fund. So I think from an accounting point of view, it would be
Mhm.
much more simple to have the fees itemized, and we could give them an idea of what the fees are going to be, but they would have to be paid in whatever way is established by the town.
And so I think your question administratively, have we looked at the collective cost and come up with a fee schedule that includes all costs and the accounting aside, and had that available to present to a developer? And the answer is no, we have not gone through any consideration of that as of this time.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one last question, and I know it's probably, it may not be applicable to this, but as a resident in Bridgewater, how does this affect me? If, obviously I'm not building a new section of my house, and I realize I'm not part of this fee. How does it affect current residents now? Will there be any hidden charges, any hidden
No,
fees, or?
not in
No,
this system development whatsoever, nothing.
Actually, I believe it'll benefit the ratepayers in town, because as Tony mentioned earlier, this revenue needs to be accounted for separately and cannot be used to fund any kind of operational costs. So, say several years down the road, there's a few $1,000,000 sitting in this account. You can then pay for a project in cash. You won't have to go to bond, and therefore it won't impact the rates at all. So that's going to benefit everyone within the town.
Okay,
And
thank you.
that's the purpose of this charge, is that the money is, you're buying into the system, the money's going to be separated, and it can be used for future capital projects, which ultimately will keep rates lower in the long run.
Okay, thank you. Can I steal one more question? I'm sorry, it just came to mind. I guess the last question is, if I wanted to build an extension to my home, I'm not currently on the sewer system, but obviously I'm on the water system. But if I wanted to just convert everything into the water and sewer system, is that applicable?
But we're not talking about sewer system development fees now, and then we'd have to know whether or not you're able to tap into the sewer system, whether you have that available. And I think the question that might be relevant, Doug, is he adds a bedroom or 2 bedrooms on, he gets a permit for that. Is there any additional cost?
Yes, there would be. There would be a per bedroom cost. And I'm sorry, I thought it was in this report that I submitted to you, Tony.
Let me see if I can pull up my copy.
Okay.
right
And just
now.
an FYI, and I know we're not dealing with the sewer. I'm on a septic component of the sewer, but I'm just sort of thinking broadly. If I were to add an extension to the house, could then I add sewer and water, and not the septic for
So,
whatever
right.
that extension is?
You'd
Well,
have to check with, Rick, you have to check with a sewer department and see if there's even a sewer line going by your property.
Yeah, it's only in
Okay.
certain parts of the town,
And,
right?
and the town isn't looking to expand the sewer.
We're only talking water right
Okay.
now.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
You know, and Mr. Gardner, I thought you made a very good point. As I read through all this, that's what my conclusion was at the end of the day, that these, you know, by revising these systems development charges, bringing them current, it would benefit the current rate users.
In the future, yes, absolutely.
Yep.
As I mentioned, the current rate users have been paying their water bill, and the debt is incorporated as part of their charge, and capital has been included as part of their charge. So they've bought into the system. It's not fair if somebody comes along and just wants to hook in and doesn't buy into the system. So that's the purpose of the development charge.
You know, and another thing I can think of, and this goes back to what you were talking about, Rick, you know, I am on the, well, the water system and the sewer system. You know, if I put a bedroom on, then I can understand that maybe I would have to pay an incremental charge. And what I've seen in the past too is a lot of times with the rentals in town here, you know, they get an expansion of a you know, a 2-bedroom 3 or a 3 to a 4, you know, but there's been no associated cost for doing that to the investor.
Thank
So,
you.
so it looks like we'd be maybe covering that moving forward too, if that should happen. So you can't just say, hey, you know, I got an extra room here. There's the 4th bedroom, you know, I'm on the sewer and that's that.
And there's a lot of things that go behind the scenes, how much water the town is allowed to pump and distribute. So it's behind the scenes, there's a lot to be managed regarding the capacity of water that we have and how many gallons of pump daily from our wells and so forth. It's quite involved, and there's always changing elements from DEP or the EPA regarding certain requirements, filtering requirements. And so this would allow us to position ourselves to have reserves build up so that we could offset if we are instructed to make further upgrades to the system.
And I just want to stress that, you know, if you put let's say you do an addition to your home and there's no bedroom, well, there's not going to be an additional charge. It's when an additional bedroom is added to the home is when the charge would be applicable.
We will get that to you. I've looked through my notes here, but off the top of your head, if it's roughly $3,500 for a brand new home, it would only be a proportional cost.
Yeah, let me see if I can find that real quick, Tony.
I apologize to the committee for not having that.
Okay.
Yeah, me too.
So is it because, it's Julie, is it a bedroom because you assume that more people are going to be occupying the home and that would result in more water usage, just like in a restaurant,
Yes.
more seats?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay. Because I was going to ask about the restaurant thing, but then when you correlate to the bedroom thing, it finally sunk in. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's not by bathroom, you know, some people would think it was that way. They do it by bedroom.
And sorry, did you all show what the costs or the rates were before?
No, but we mentioned it.
Oh, we did speak about those, Susie. Was
Okay.
it currently for 1 inch? I think you said $2,400.
Correct.
And I think for a 6-inch fire connection right now, it's 3,000. Is that correct?
8,000, that's what
That
I
is-
wrote down.
That is correct.
That's
Okay,
always
thank you.
that's obviously a big delta there, but you know, it's the commercial end. So
Okay, so I found the ERU. Let me see if I can share the schedule with you. Okay. So here's the ERU expanded usage. The calculation came out to be $4,200. So if you added like if a laundromat wanted to expand their capacity, it's determined that each washing machine would be 0.34 or 34% of a single ERU. So you would take the 34% multiplied by the 4,200, and it would come out to the 1,426. The restaurant is a 7% ERU per seat. Daycare is 14%. Motel, stores, nursing homes, additional living room, this is the bedroom. And then if a bar expands out and they're increasing their occupancy by 10, it would be 10 multiplied by the 2%. So it would work out to be $83.89 per seat added. And I'll just add this to the report. It must have got cut off when I pasted it in there, Tony.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask, may I ask another question, please?
Go ahead, Rig.
How does the university factor into this? I'm assuming that the university is under, is connected to town sewer and water.
Correct.
And if so, how are they, let's say they wanted to build a new building, what's their fee?
Depends what's in the building, but
So the question I think, Doug, is do these fees apply to their expansion?
yes, absolutely.
I think that's what Riggs, that's what you were asking?
That's correct. And so they get, a university of that size would pay a similar fee as a small business owner?
Well,
It's-
it would be based on what they're adding. So if they're adding multiple bathrooms, if they're adding, if they're adding a cafeteria, or if they're adding some sort of coffee shop or food court in there,
New
these would all
dorm,
impact.
But is it those rates that you showed us on that expansion, like per bedroom, per bathroom, per seat, like?
And there are
This is-
additional,
I think this is to answer Riggs' question regarding some of the minor changes or the changes that occur after someone has already bought into the system or an existing user on the system. Those other charges that he walked you through are for
Mhm.
any new construction, any
Okay.
new building, any new dorms, any new anything. All
Okay.
these fee structures apply.
Thank you.
these are for the new charges or new connections up here. These are for the expansion of an existing connection or an existing dwelling.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think we did jump. I think we kind of jumped quickly between two different things. Rig, excellent question.
Yeah.
You read my mind, actually. I had that very question. I mean, I'm assuming that the university is the biggest institutional rate user in the town.
As a single unit
Yep.
entity,
Maybe
yeah,
what about the prison?
Prison's not one.
they have their
Yeah.
own water system.
Yeah, prison's not on.
Thank you.
But excellent question, Rig. Like I said, that was my next question, actually. All right, do we have any other questions, comments? Mr. Gardner, for Tony?
Oh, this is just part A of my presentation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for this particular order.
Yeah, so for this order, that's the information just for this order.
That
Yep.
that's it for this order, correct?
Okay,
Correct.
so for this order right now, the water system development charges,
Mhm.
FY 22-9. All great questions that we've had so far. Do we have any more? Comments? Thoughts?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Chair will entertain a motion if no more questions or comments.
Motion to
Oh,
approve?
I'll motion to approve. Oh, never mind.
Who we gotta do? Susie, MJ? MJ for a second.
I'll
Josh,
let
if you,
Susie have it.
okay, good. Josh, if you could
So
roll call, please.
generous, MJ.
I try.
Yeah, right. Your name will come first this time. Susie. Josh, if you could do a roll call. Please.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie.
Sorry. Aye, yeah, you got that right.
Aye.
MJ,
I,
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Moving on, as I scroll down here, usually I print this out, but the printer ran out of ink. Here we go. FY 22-070 water rates. Take it away, Mr. Gardner.
Okay, so part of one of the other portions of the study was to look at the water and sewer rates. Tonight, we're only going to discuss water. What is driving your water rates?
Just before you get there, I want to refresh the group.
Sure.
You guys recall the bonding that was authorized a while back for the wastewater, excuse me, for the water treatment plant, the High Street water treatment plant. And this, one of the reasons we had asked Doug to look at this stuff, as you can see on the systems development, is because now we have an asset. And in this case, we have bonding that we will be faced with, and all the work that Doug has done has taken that into consideration. Thank you, Doug.
Okay, so I've worked with the town probably for the last 10 years or so on the water and sewer rates. So Tony and Jonas called, asked me to update the water rates. So the three of us and really everybody throughout the town have worked very closely over the last few months working on this water rate study. What's going to be driving your rates for the most part, of course, your costs are going up every year by inflationary percentages, but it's the new debt for the water treatment plant that's coming on board starting in fiscal 23. So starting in 2 weeks from today, 2 weeks and a day, principal and interest is going to be $752,000 on that bond. So that's adding $750,000 to the amount of money that you need to generate every year. And you still have other capital improvements to fund in addition to that plant. That's just the plant. And you can see that the debt is somewhat consistent from last year. Some of the bonds mature in fiscal 24, and then you flatten out for 3 years, and then you have another decrease in fiscal 27. So when we do the rate study, the last thing we do is design the rates. We look for all sources of revenue, other sources of revenue. What kind of fees are out there? What kind of governmental money is out there? What's the most effective way to bond this? So we look for all those sources of revenue. But before we get there, we have to build what's known as the revenue requirements. How much money do we need to generate each year to fund not only salaries or expenses, but also our debt service, our indirect costs, other capital improvements, and then also capital reserves. So when we add all these together, and it's based on the fiscal 23 budget, we then project fiscal 24, fiscal 25, fiscal 26, and fiscal 27 as best we can. Salaries, other expenses are just incrementally raised by maybe 2, 3, 4, 5%, depending. Obviously, fossil fuels see a larger increase than salaries. But we project out these costs. We add up the total of the 5 years, and then we divide that by 5, and we come up with that we need to generate about $4.8 million each year for the next 5 years to fund this budget. That includes all the salaries, all the expenses, again, all the debt, the new debt, that 752,000 that's coming on board, and then the indirect costs and the other capital improvements. So this is what we need to come up with. So how do we get there? Well, the rates are based primarily on two large factors: the quarterly minimum charge that you have, and then the amount of water that goes through the water meter. That's where the vast majority of your money comes from. So we look at what are you charging for the minimum charge and what are you charging for the water fees. Now, there's also a private fire protection component. There's some cross connection, all small amounts, but do count towards helping lower the rate. So if we know we need to generate 4.8 million and your current budget is 3.6 million, that means we need to find 1.2 million in new rates. And again, 750,000 of that is coming from the new debt. So if we look at your consumption, you have a 3-step water rate right now, and you read in cubic feet. So from your first step, and that's going to be your lowest rate, is for all consumption between 1 and 1,500 cubic feet per quarter. 36,500,000 cubic feet of flow in that first step. Your second step is from 1,501 gallon to 10,000 gallon per quarter. There was a little over 20 million cubic feet in that step. And then your third step is for all consumption in excess of the 10,000 cubic feet, and it's about 10.5 million cubic feet there. So your total billed consumption, that's what goes through the water meter, was a little over 67 million cubic feet. There are 7.48 gallons in a cubic foot. So this works out to be again. A little over 502 million gallons of water is what the town bills on an annual basis. That's what the town sells. So we have the base charge, as I mentioned, and then we have the flow charge. We go to our revenue proof. Here we have the private fire protection charges. Here's your minimum charge. That's going to generate almost $1 million a year. We have the cross connection. We have some non-water consumption revenue, and then we have the sale of water. So the sale of water is going to generate about $3.7 million each year. We add everything up. We have $4,839,000 in revenue. Our expenses of $4,829,000. Essentially, we're at break even. So these rates will generate sufficient revenue to fund the budget for the next 5 years. So what does all that mean to the rates? Presently, you have a 1-step minimum charge for all customers, regardless of the size of their meter. Their quarterly charge is $12.50. What we're recommending is that the charge beginning in fiscal 23 increase from $12.50 to $25 per quarter. So we're doubling it. Now, we spoke a little bit during the system development portion of, as the connection size increases, the charges should increase as well. Same holds true on the meters. A 1-inch meter can flow X amount of water over and above a meter that's up to an inch. So therefore, they should be paying a higher fee. We're recommending that fee go to $75. A 1.5 inch would be $125. All the way up to a 6-inch meter, that would increase to $1,250. And this is all per quarter. These charges here are going to generate the $943,700 of your revenue. This is fixed income, so guaranteed revenue. Now, the 3-step rate, again, 1 to 1,500, 1,500, and 1 to 10,000, and then anything over 10,000. Your first step rate is at $2.81. We're recommending that increase to $3.48. It's a 67-cent increase per 100 cubic feet, which works out to be about 24%. So we're recommending a 24% increase to the step rates across the board. The second step for all consumption between 1,501 to 10,000 cubic feet presently is at $5.94. We're recommending that increase to $7.37. And your third step for all consumption in excess of 10,000 cubic feet is presently at $7.28. We're recommending that increase to $9.03 per 100 cubic feet. So every customer, let's say somebody uses 20,000 cubic feet a quarter. Their first 1,500 cubic feet will be at $2.81. Their next 8,500 cubic feet will be at $5.94. And then their last 10,000 cubic feet will be at $7.28. You don't skip steps. You climb the steps. You don't. So if your consumption is over strictly in the third step, you're still paying 1,500 of your consumption, 8,500 at the middle rate, and then everything else is at the highest rate. And these rates are the same whether you're a single family homeowner, if you have a business, or at Bridgewater State. The fee is the same to each customer. The only thing that will change is if you have a larger meter, your quarterly minimum charge will increase. We're also recommending that the private fire protection charges increase. They are fairly low at this point. So we're recommending some increases there. And these fees have not been touched in a number of years. So we're looking to bring them based on your actual costs. Part of our study involved in what we call a cost allocation study. So we determine what it costs to provide private fire protection. We determine what it costs to go out and read a meter and send out a bill and collect that bill. And then we also determine the costs of the step rates. So the long and short of it is we're recommending that the minimum charge increase significantly for the larger customers. And again, a large increase, but these rates really haven't been adjusted recently. And again, we're increasing the amount of money that we need to operate the division by a significant portion, primarily through that new bond for the water treatment facility. This is how we're going to pay for that, through these rates. Now, I know 24% is a very high number. My first pass at these numbers was significantly higher. I believe it was up over 50%. Tony worked really hard to find money out there and use reserves to pay for certain portions of the project which ultimately kept the rate increase as low as possible. And that lowest possible increase is the 24%. So how is that going to impact an average customer? Say somebody who uses 1,500 cubic feet a year or a quarter right now, they're paying $54.65. Their bill would increase to $77.20. That's $22.55, which is a 41% increase. And then the numbers do go down percentage wise, the more water you use, but that's solely because this increase here is 100% and the step rate increase is 24%. So the more you use, yes, you're going to be paying more dollar wise, just the percentage increase goes down. And the optics look bad, but it is an increase to the water bill.
So there's one other piece, you know, as Doug started the presentation, the rates are there to offset your costs. And this is an enterprise fund. And the study is done in order to determine what we need to do for our rates. It's important to know that we spent a great deal of time working with Doug, and internally, we have our own 5-year forecast, which helped inform Doug as to where we saw wage increases going, where we saw health insurance increases going, the number of operators you need to bring on board to run the new treatment plant. So all those have been factored into this. And when we were all said and done, as Doug said, the increase was higher, and I just knew there had to be, we had to look hard at how we could defray some of that cost. And so we did. We ended up using reserves to fund about $2.2 million of the non-SRF eligible parts of the project, and that was the cost of the garage, the maintenance garage and facility. So that was we were able to reduce the total bonding amount. There'll be no general obligation bond on this, meaning we won't go out and bond this as the town through bond issuance. We will be using the bonding mechanism with SRF. We've watched those costs of this project very closely. We received notification of a loan forgiveness of 13.2%, which is another roughly $2.1 million. And we are estimating that the borrowing rate with SRF, this wouldn't be a bond rate you get on the marketplace. The bond rate will be 1.5% for the remaining money. So we took all of that into consideration. There were also some water main projects that were built into our original estimate. The good news is the ARPA funds, and I think I alluded to this group when we accepted, it was an order that you had to vote on to accept the ARPA funds. We estimate that if these other projects go forward to update the Flag Street water lines, Cross Street water line, and South Street water lines, that we would end up using $5.6 million of ARPA money. And by doing so, we did not have to factor those water line replacement costs into these calculations. That was fun. That 5.6 million, and then using the retained earnings, those components really have allowed Doug to come back with a, although it's going to be a shock, but we mitigated the rate increase as much as possible, and that's how we've arrived at the 24%.
Tony, can you tell us, someone mentioned that it's been a long time since it changed. Do you know when the last rate change was?
17.
Correct.
I mean, to your point, we're gonna have to, I mean, if anyone asks, oh my God, why did it go up so much? So if they say, why didn't we do it incrementally? Is there a reason why we didn't do it a little at a time instead of?
Well,
All at
I
once?
think what we didn't have in place is the practices and disciplines that we do have in place now. So for the first 3 or 4 years before I even came on, when I came on, there were other considerations for the time and resources. I think that's why today we're presenting the SDC charges, where we've been engaged with Doug. We do our own internal 5-year forecast, and we're ensuring that we build reserves as well. And that this should be probably every 2 or 3 years. We should engage and redo our numbers and determine whether or not incremental increases should be considered in order to put away for reserves. We anticipate down the road, DEP or EPA may require some stringent, different, what's the word that would describe it best, requirements on the quality of the water and the quality of our filtration system. We may have to upgrade again, and so we will be keeping an eye to the future. I know it's kind of a long word to say we're here, we're going to do it better going forward, and one could argue that rates could have been increased incrementally to build reserves.
And so if they ask when will it go up again, like how do we tell them that? it's
Right
not
now,
gonna
there's
happen
no major
going
cost
forward?
for the next 3 to 5 years that we see, but we will do a review at least 3 years from now, probably 2, and depending upon the EPA and the DEP and any other requirements they're putting on a water treatment plant.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
I have a-
Chairman, I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask as a follow-up to Julie's questions, if that's okay.
It's okay with me.
So my first question, Tony, is, I noticed that he mentioned that, we're gonna basically break even on the amount that we're gonna need versus the amount that we're gonna receive. Is this based on an ideal situation that all ratepayers all pay on time, or does it assume at any point during the collection process that some folks either may not pay their bill or may pay only partially? The only reason I ask is because I know in some municipalities, you can run into an issue, put out a receivable, you're not necessarily collecting all the receivable at one time. So because it's an enterprise fund, is there any mechanism in place in the event that the amount of money that we're taking in doesn't match the amount of money that we actually need to bring us break even?
We anticipate that, and Doug can speak to this, that the revenue that we will actually collect will be in line with what we need to operate and to pay debt. And we will be going in to this the end of this fiscal year with at least an additional $1.8 million sitting in our retained earnings. And we envision that we will have the revenue to maintain that $1.8 million reserve, kind of like their stabilization fund in their retained earnings throughout the next 5 years that we're forecasting.
And my projections are conservative.
Mm-hmm.
And in regards to not collecting all your revenue, the town doesn't have or at least on the enterprise fund, does not have a collection problem. That's something I look at as part of the study. And you do lien. So anything you don't collect in the current fiscal year, generally the amounts that are liened cover that difference.
Okay.
So the revenue, we do look at the revenue, and we've looked at the history of the revenue. Some other changes that have occurred in the past is that you have new water meters, so they're much more accurate. So your cash flow is up as a result of that. The water meters are your cash register. If they're running slow or if they're not working properly, you're going to see a decrease in revenue, which is part of the problem you've had in the past. But since you've made those changes, the revenue is much stronger. Therefore, the health of the enterprise fund is much stronger as well. And, you know, frankly, your finance team has done an excellent job of budgeting and ensuring that the enterprise funds remain healthy and that we don't draw the reserves down too low.
And then my follow-up question either to you, Mr. Gardner, or to Tony, as it relates to collections that might go delinquent, are we at any point, or have we at any point changed or updated the demand fees if there is one put on the water accounts in Bridgewater? I know most municipalities usually put like a $5 to $20 demand fee, or up to 25, which is statute limited. Do we do that? And then the subsection of that question is what has been our annual collection rate?
I can answer the first one. I believe the demand fee is 25, up to the statute limitations. Our collection rate, if to Doug's point, after you lean it and you collect it in the following year, you know, we're in the high 90s, 99% collection, 99.5. Yep.
It's tough to get much higher.
Hey,
I have
great
a-
questions, MJ. Thank you. Susie?
Yeah, I have a very specific question. Not sure if that's easy to parse out right now, but in thinking about some of our small businesses, particularly those that rely heavily on water, right? Whether they're landscapers or restaurants. So they would be subject to the same 24% increase, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, because this is just a universal. Do most of our small businesses, or actually, I guess it would really depend on the nature of the business, but say if you're an average bar or restaurant in town, right, where they're going to have a higher water consumption, are they probably in the second or third step of the meter water charges?
So one of the things we did, Julie, is Doug goes through his calculations. He gets consumption numbers. We maintain a database so we can look at it, whether it's a residential, commercial, industrial, and we can look at their consumption. It depends on the type of business. And unless Doug can gather some insights, it depends. So we will have that information when the notification goes out to the ratepayers, and when they call and ask about this, then we will have information to respond to them in kind that's particular to the water consumption for their particular location. And also with the water scope, I think it's water scope, correct me if I'm wrong, the metering system that we put in, which is part of the debt service. We put in all new meters throughout the town. I think we finished the project about 1.5 years ago. And so each individual business owner or resident can sign up for an account, which gives them notification on their water usage. And it lets them know where they are. As it relates to who falls into what tier, I'd have to get a very specific account in order to answer that accurately.
Okay. I think what I'm just trying to get to is just some concern around some of our smaller businesses where, you know, this is just one opinion as a resident. As a resident, I've actually thought that our water rates were pretty low. So but that's just one opinion, right? Others will not feel that way, especially if they are higher consumers than my family is. But from a small business perspective, and again, I think I'm probably thinking around that lens of like some of the ones that have really struggled through the pandemic, a 24% increase on something on a utility that, you know, maybe high use already, I think could be a little concerning.
I don't think we can parse out any particular group and create a different rate structure. I mean, an enterprise fund is set up as it is in order to recover costs, and to charge one user for consumption different than the other. I don't even know if it's legal, Doug.
Oh, I'm sure it's not legal. I can't imagine it would be legal, but it's just
No.
some, you know,
And-
I'm just throwing that out there as just something to think about in terms of, I actually do appreciate though the history and the background of the work that you all have put into it, and particularly also being able to take some out of reserves to help offset.
cost-
It may just be a matter of helping to communicate to the community about, kind of this cadence of why it hasn't increased and just kind of setting those expectations, because it will definitely be a hit for some.
Very good point, Susie. I think I might want to ask that question a different way. Do we know what the average cubic foot usage is for a residential home in Bridgewater?
It varies so much.
A 3-bedroom, do you break it out by bedroom? Or-
No, I do not.
No.
The meters don't provide that kind of information. Let me call this back up.
We're
Google.
having a boat ski for, and speaking of the
Okay.
notification system, I was actually power washing my house this week and we got a notice from the water department saying, hey, maybe you have a leak.
Right.
Yep.
They noticed that our water usage was above normal.
Yeah,
And
the
the other-
meters are very smart these days. So if they see water usage increase suddenly, it throws a flag and will notify you. So to answer your question, so an average homeowner, they're going to be somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 cubic feet per quarter. So
Okay, thank
they're
you.
going to see anywhere from a $22, so that's less than $100 a year for 1,500 cubic feet. And then somebody who uses 2,500 cubic feet, and 2,500 cubic feet is 18,700 gallons of water. They're going to see a $29.70 increase each quarter. So they're going to be in this ballpark, 1,500, 2,000, 2,500 cubic feet, somewhere in this range.
Following
And
up on what Susie said, what, do we know what other towns paid? Like Susie thinks we're lower. I don't know. I've never thought about it.
well, I work in a lot of different communities, and your present rates, this minimum charge is very low. And your first step rate, actually your 3-step rates are low. With the rate increase, obviously they're much higher, but they're not, you're probably in the middle someplace right now. But you have to look at, you can't base your rates on what other people charge.
No, I understand that. I'm just trying to
yeah,
say,
and
people are gonna
you're-
start, should I move? Where can I pay less? That scenario. I
Well,
guess.
you run an enterprise fund. You have reserves. You're doing things the right way. You've invested a tremendous amount of money in a new water treatment facility. I've worked over in the town of Middleborough. They put in a new septic plant or a new wastewater treatment plant there, and their rates almost doubled because the cost of the systems and the government, DEP, and the Commonwealth are placing greater demands on your system. They're forcing or they're requiring you to test for different products. They changed the thresholds of what's allowed today to what's going to be allowed tomorrow. And this all costs money. So you, as Tony mentioned before, you've got this new system, but suddenly, maybe 2 years from now, DEP changes their mind and you have to put in another kind of filtration system because the government has changed the amount of whatever, and they've lowered the threshold that's allowable in the water. So the more government interaction there is, the more your water is going to cost.
So I don't have it in front of me, but I did an analysis on the sewer side that I can throw together on the water side, but I can't see it would be much different. If my recollection is correct, around 56% of your users, right, will be in the tier 1.
And I have that somewhere as well, Tony.
Yeah, so
Um,
more than half of your users in the residential side are in that tier one. What's also happening, and Nate, that was a very good point you made. We have to really be watching the consumption of water, and I think notifications have been put out there. Because we can't draw more than, I believe it's 1.7 million, what's it, 1 million gallons a day? Doug, or 1.7?
I don't know what your yield
Okay.
is.
I think it's 1.7. And so you're receiving notification because we are monitoring excessive use. The handheld watering or no watering for your lawns is important because that's where a residential homeowner, if they're watering their lawns, that's where they'll bury their consumption. And also if they have leaking faucets or toilets, that will bury their consumption. So with the metering system and with the town monitoring potential leaks where there's a high demand, and once we send notification out to the residents, they can certainly, and it does happen, when rates go up initially, you're going to have more conservation. All right, some will stick to the conservation, some won't. But they do have it within their, the users do have some control over how much water they use.
Good point, Tony. All right, do we have any other questions, comments? Either Tony or Mr. Gardner at the time? Nobody wants to pay more, but you know, I thought, Julie, you made a good point. You know, if we had a bigger horizon, in a better world or a more perfect world, we could have done these increases incrementally, instead of raising 24% at one time. But at the same time, it sounds like a lot of work is done, so that they're not being increased 50% or 40%. So any other thoughts, comments, questions?
Oh, one question, Nate,
Go ahead, MJ.
probably to either Mr. Gardner or to Tony. When the rates are changed, will we be sending a notification out to all ratepayers, either like a 3x5 card that can go in with each bill, or are we gonna send like a separate 8x11 notice?
As soon as these are approved, we have mailers that are going to go out explaining. Those are going to be reviewed by the town manager. I think they're already done in draft form, and we want to get them out as soon as possible, and they wouldn't go into effect to any water consumption between now and the end of June. It would kick in July. It will be posted on the town's website, posted on the water department's page. And so that's the intent as of now.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
You're
All
welcome.
right, good question, MJ. Yeah, now, you know, obviously, the members of this community, we tend to know a lot more, and it is important that our fellow citizens and our fellow ratepayers do understand why these increases are coming, and it's just not happening in a vacuum or some other mysterious reason. And also, thank you, Mr. Right now, know again that 7.48 gallons of water are in a cubic foot of water. Milestone on that. Anybody else? Question, comment? A motion.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
Thank you, MJ. Thank you, Rig. Josh, if we could do a roll call, please.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all the great questions and comments and discussion that we had about, you know, this very important issue that impacts us all as the town here. All right. Moving
Hey,
on. Whoop,
Thank
yep.
you.
Who was that? Is it Mr. Gardner? He just leave? Okay. All right, moving on. Oh boy, end of year transfers, FY 22-071. Tony, year end transfers, end of year transfers.
So I think there are some new members on the board. So each year, the town is allowed to look where they have surpluses in certain departments and in certain categories, salaries and expenses, and where they anticipate shortfall for changes in what happened between, look at it this way, last May, we voted, right, our budget for this year. And so before we're even halfway through the fiscal year, we're really, close to 9 months away from our estimating. So a lot can happen. And so we monitor that, working closely with the departments. We have a communication practice that we follow. And in fact, at the end of each year, we come forward to this group and council, and we make the recommended transfers to ensure that all our departments' categories for salaries and wages and or categories for expenses are balanced. And so what you have before you is in fact that order that is done annually. And I would even encourage a member that has gone through this to also chime in. But this is a normal practice each year. And if you have specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
All right,
But
does
these-
anybody have any questions? I have, Tony, obviously seen this a few times over the years. I know MJ, probably Susie, quite a few of us are familiar with this process. Does anybody have any questions for Tony about any specific transfers that we see on here, or,
And you
just,
can- Yeah, the increases and decreases add to zero. So there's
Yep.
no money that we're looking for. It's just adjusting budgets.
moving money around within the budget essentially, Tony, right?
That's correct.
Tony, can you just tell us what number 914, what MDCR, health, life insurance, like what MDCR stands for?
Medicare.
Medicare, thank you.
I guess I have one little question, because it's a very small amount. I noticed that we're transferring $1 to debt service in line 710. What's that for?
Because we're over by $1, and legally we'd have to raise it on the recap and report it to the Department of Revenue if we don't have a balanced budget.
That makes sense.
DOR requirements.
I noticed the gas and oil, we got what, 76? Does that just reflect the increases we've seen in the economy?
Absolutely. It in fact does. And we took that into consideration when we were building the 23 budget. We used some inflationary assumptions in creating that.
Good question. That was my question.
What about that energy fund 192? OFS.
Yes. Well, what we have is we have energy credits. So there's a solar field in town, and we entered into an agreement with them before I came on board, where the town would buy the energy from the solar field at a certain rate, and then we would getting offsetting credit against our bills for the actual bills we pay National Grid. It's considered a energy credit. Well, once you recoup that credit as a deduction against the bill, it actually becomes a surplus. So we have built a surplus in that fund, and we would use that to offset energy costs and any other costs that occur during the course of the year, because that is considered another available fund. So in fact, we're transferring that from the energy fund.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question on the police, the three, it says capital, like, is that capital expenses?
1 second.
Or is that supposed to,
I just got to get to the,
sorry,
no, that's okay. So there's a surplus that's left. There's a project that they need an additional $57,000 to complete. There's an outbuilding that they started, and then they ran into the pandemic. And as a result of running into the pandemic, they needed some additional funds to offset the labor costs, because the project was done with a lot of the vocational school students. They did a lot of work on that project, but they couldn't complete it all during the pandemic, and then they were on to other projects once the pandemic lifted, and we needed an additional 57,000. So we're moving that into that capital item to finish the outbuilding.
so had they been able to finish it, would we not have?
Yeah, we
Had to
wouldn't have
pay
had
that?
it. Yeah, we would have not incurred probably, we probably would end up having a surplus on that project, but as a result, we did not.
And but where it's pandemic related, is there no grant money or anything to
No,
cover that?
No, not for that, no. Believe
Okay,
me,
thank
I've
I
gone
know,
after.
Tony, I trust you. I just have to ask.
No, you should ask. And you know what it is? At this point, I wish we don't have to get any more federal money. Talk to Kathy Macedo. She's kind of the same mind. It's a lot, but thank you for the question.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Julie.
Welcome.
Yeah. Any other questions on end of year transfers?
Town buildings, Tony, it's 181,000 that we're putting towards it. What are some of the things that are going to be fixed for town buildings on that?
Nothing. Those are costs that we incurred. We started to ramp up having a town building department where we have an individual that's starting to monitor and address town building issues. And in fact, we incurred costs throughout the year because of the work that he's doing that needed to be addressed. Now, I don't have a list of those items in front of me. I apologize for that. I am looking for a spreadsheet that was sent to me with some descriptive. So if you give me a moment, I'll continue to look. But I can't be specific. I know there's also an electricity budget in the building department that was underfunded last in FY22. So there's a good chunk of money going to energy costs in that department.
So on the whole, then it's more or less the cost of doing business to maintain the buildings and the costs associated with the individual who is now helping to manage the building sites as a result.
Yes, plus energy and gas.
What buildings would we, I mean, the school district's on their own budget, right? And
No, so the town didn't know how the school system has a facilities director.
yeah,
We just hired 2 years ago. The town never had a facilities person for any of their buildings. For the town hall, for the library, for the senior center. We hired someone in the FY21 budget, and we are putting together and we're starting to address general maintenance issues and things that we would let slide. So as a result, we're addressing problems that have been around for quite some time, as well as someone's managing the budget and ensuring that we have what we need in order to do the work. I'm going to that right now. Let's see if I can find it in the building department.
so could some of that, it says expenses, but could it have said expense and had another portion be salary, wage, benefits, so it doesn't look
Oh,
right?
nothing went to salaries, wage, none of the transfer
None of
going
that-
in.
Okay.
No, none of it is.
That's
That's
a lot of
good.
expenses.
Well, as I said, electricity is one of them, and I'm looking for the account right now. Bear with me. No,
The other thing you gotta realize, Julie, is there's also the aspect of sort of the disposable things that go along with keeping a building up, like cleaning materials, paper towels, toilet paper, mops, sponges, cleaning supplies, all those materials that would go into that. Energy would certainly be the bigger expense that I know Tony is looking at,
Yeah.
but certainly the cleaning supplies we still have a cleaning contract, right?
yes.
Okay, so it would go into getting the material that the cleaning crews would need in order to help keep buildings like the Academy building, the floors clean, the bathrooms clean, council chamber and various office areas cleaned as well.
No, and I would also think too, that we've had so much deferred maintenance on our town buildings over the years now, that now that we have somebody doing this job, I can only imagine that we may also see an increase in expenses just as we start to tackle some of this deferred maintenance.
Yes, and that is part of what you're seeing. And again, the FY23 budget
That was my next question.
reflects what the facilities manager feels is necessary.
Tony, I have a question.
Yeah.
The forecast that's before us, is it just for a fiscal year, or has it been forecasted out a couple of years out? And the reason I'm asking the question is because, obviously if, I'm just thinking about next year, what happens next year, obviously if costs increase, just sort of planning ahead.
So this order here is only for FY22, and it's moving money from budgets where we had a surplus, and we're moving those to budgets where we did not. The forecast for 23 budget, which you've already approved, took into consideration what we feel is what's required for the FY23 budget. We also have already begun, because we know FY23 with what's going on in the economy, we're going to have to monitor our budgets more closely. So with Michael's support, we've established a monthly discussion with each individual department going forward, starting in August of FY23. And it will be just for that, to make sure that we are aligned and we pay more close attention to some of these figures. So I do want you to know that during the course of the year, let's say, I know we're going to have $90,000 left in the salaries for the police because we didn't hire, through attrition, we couldn't get to full staff during the course of the year. So I pay attention to that. So the first part of that document up top is where I'm paying attention during the course of the year where I think we will have surplus. So at the same time, I'm paying attention to what's going on for the departments where I think they would have deficit or they have costs that they need to incur that wasn't part of their budget. And so with my recommendation to the town manager, we monitor this and we say, okay, when we do our year-end transfer, we will in fact move these funds accordingly so that we balance out. So if you look at this, is 949,000 out of a budget that we approved of, I don't know, it's not even 1% variance, I guess I would say, on the budget overall. It's less than a 1% variance on the budget, and in fact, it's transferring because the way DOR requires, we have to budget by salary group within a department and expend group in department, and we have to go before council and the subcommittees for approval to make any transfers. And this is our only mechanism to do that. So we know that we're not going to be 100% accurate on all budgets. and we know where we're not going to hire someone, or we try to hire someone and we don't get them to the second quarter of the year, and we know there'll be a surplus in that line. So when things come up that need addressing, and we ask ourselves, can we move that to the next fiscal year? We also ask ourselves, do we have any funds in some other line items that we can use to offset that so that we can address the issue sooner than later? So it's more of a management tool and a thought process that we adhere to. And this is just within the budget for this year, and it's not forecasting forward from here.
Is the $1 million,
Thank you.
the less than 1% similar to other year-end transfers, or where does it rate compare to other year-end transfers?
I think we're a little higher this year. We did have some real challenges with the energy costs going up, with the gasoline costs going up. We also had, let's see what else, the fire department. We had some real issue with overtime and manning, because we had a number of individuals, some individuals retired, some individuals were injured on duty, some individuals had personal injuries. So we had to backfill that with overtime. And that was really, they had a tough year from that vantage point. So that was unique to their department. Norfolk Agricultural, when they come in with their final numbers, we don't get them until really October. So there's 54,500 when we finally got the final numbers, and we knew we were going to have a deficit there, but we knew we'd have available funds to transfer.
That always comes in October though, right? So-
Yeah, but they give us estimates in May.
Right.
So we have to budget by estimates. So some of it's just the nature of the beast. The $57,000 for the police, we said, hey, we have those funds. Let's take care of let's use those now, because we do have some available funds. Same thing with our HR benefits, some health insurance benefits. And so what we do is we also look at what can we get done this year that we don't have to put off to next year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Great questions, everyone. Anything else for Tony?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay. We have no other thoughts or questions or comments. The chair will entertain a motion on our end of year transfers.
Motion to
Motion to
approve.
approve.
Okay, Rig, we'll give you the first, and was that you, MJ, second?
I'll second it.
And Josh, if we could do a roll call, please.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Okay, thank you, everyone. We just got a couple more items here. This next one, FY 22-072, acceptance of gift, Howard Foundation for the Council of the Aging. We can see that it is a gift for $10,000 from the Home of Age for Aged Men, which I believe is out of Brockton. We can see with the accompanying letter that the $10,000 will be made to the Town of Bridgewater Council on Aging. It is only, they can only use it on behalf of the elderly only. The money cannot be used to pay any salaries or provide for any capital expenditures. It looks like we're also required to report back to the charity how the money was spent. Did I get that, Tony?
Yep.
All right, any questions, comments on this?
Motion to approve.
Thank you,
Second.
Susan. Thank you. Okay, Josh, if we could do a roll call.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
All right, thank you. And our final order for this evening, FY 22-073, transfer order from the CPA BWPL Conservation and Preservation Historical Records Library Project. Okay, so this is a project under the CPC fund. Tony, if you could just do a quick recap for maybe some that don't know, about this special one that we have.
Well, I can give a little background on the fund, but Mr. Dutton has hung on to
For this?
speak to the
Okay.
actual request by the CPC.
Okay. Mr. Dutton.
He's on mute. If he's
Yep.
not,
All right,
if he's
there we
not,
go.
is.
So let me begin. I'll just give you a very quick update. The Community Preservation Fund is a fund that is money that's collected as a 2%
surcharge.
surcharge on your tax bill, correct? So when we collect that money, the Community Preservation Committee then suggests and recommends a budget. We have to fund a little bit of money into each of 3 buckets, which are the only 3 things that you can actually use this money for. One is referred to as community housing, but more commonly referred to as affordable housing. One is historic preservation, and the other is open space and recreation. So those are three general areas where the money can be used. And so in this case, there's a project, a library project, a project that is spearheaded by the library, I should say, and it's to preserve and digitize documents, photographs, and preserve physical items that the library currently has identified and has either in its possession or has secured in a secure place. So they've done a good job of going out and looking to get grant funding. They've gotten grant funding from Mass Historic, State Board of Library Commissioners, and a couple other areas. So it's a project that will result in a collection that can be viewed in the library. It is also a project that will digitize and make available and easily accessible records. I think I read dating back, there's one book in particular, I think that the library has in its possession that dates back, specific to Bridgewater, dates back to essentially the founding of Bridgewater, 1656. And they want to make sure that they digitize that so it can be, the records themselves can be preserved. So that is very basically it. They've done an exhaustive job of applying for the money. And so I won't try to read through all of the particulars, but it very essentially, it's a request for funds from the Community Preservation Committee or from the Community Preservation Act funds that will fund historic preservation of items and documents that the library has. But can certainly answer questions if anybody has a question.
It has been approved by the Community Preservation Committee.
Correct. That's the only time it gets to you is if it's been approved by the CPC.
Is this the purchase like a scanner? I'm just trying to better understand.
No,
when you say digitize.
Yep, it's to pay for it's a very specialized service that very well-trained preservationists know how to do. So we wouldn't be trying to do this ourselves. So we will pay to have that done. And then it also pays for restoration of some of the items that they have in their possession, and also pays for historic display space, which will be in the library. A portion of the library will be turned into sort of museum display space.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep.
And to add to that, Rig, as a history major myself, when I saw this application be added to the packet, it made me very happy to know that we're finally able to get this moving. I know Michael and by extension Mrs. Williams as well tried to have this type of project put forward a couple of years ago, and the opportunity just didn't avail itself to make it possible. But now things have gotten into place finally where it is now feasible. I had an opportunity to read the whole application. And I know there may be a question of what is considered property by the definition that is put out there by one of the grant programs. As far as I'm concerned, in my interpretation, all of our records and all of our historical materials for which we have said will constitute community preservation, I also believe they act also as property of the town. Therefore, we serve two purposes of preserving the property of the town and also preserving the community's history. And just throwing that out right now out there, when we do get to a vote, I'm going to fervently support and vote yes on this. And I recommend my fellow colleagues do so as well.
Thank you, MJ.
No, and I agree with you 100%, MJ. You know, myself as a science person, you know, this is something that's long overdue in this town. I mean, there's a treasure trove of stuff down at our public library. Then I also look and I see that they are getting funding from other places. I see that the Flora T. Little Trust, once again, donating money. I see a Veterans Heritage Grants in here. Some of it's coming out of the public library from its budget. And, you know, they're also counting, looks like they're counting on volunteer hours. I'm sure that I'm sure they're undercounted when it comes to volunteer hours. We all know, being on this committee. And I did have a chance to read through it myself. It was quite detailed. They definitely did their due diligence here. All right, anybody else? Questions, comments, thoughts?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Rig. Thank you. That was you, MJ, right?
Yep, it was.
Okay, thank you. If you could do a roll call for us, please, Josh.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
An enthusiastic yes.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
MJ, you sound like one of the judges on America's Got Talent. Enthusiastic, yes.
History is very close to my heart. Although I'm an assistant tax collector, Julie, history is my first love aside from politics. So
All
seeing
right.
something like this come to the town and come to us makes me very happy and makes me very proud to know that historical material is going to be preserved for future generations. And
It only
as a
took till
history nerd,
8:46 to get there, but great.
hey, if it took 100, that's fine. But it's great that it's finally happening now. And as a little historian in me, smiling and
Excellent.
cheering.
Well, you know what? Actually, it looks like we have one more order of business on here that I did not notice. Well, I did not see. Oh, at the end. Hold on 1 second. We have FY 22-074 transfer order Styles and Hart Parkland Improvement Projects with CPA application.
So, I'm sorry, did you vote on the last one? You voted on the last one, right?
We did.
Okay, so this one, Styles and Hart, same source of funding. It comes out of the different buckets, obviously, than historic preservation, but it is open space and recreation. The Styles and Hart project itself consists of, we broke it down into 5 components. We are creating and adding parking to Styles and Hart. For those that don't know where Styles and Hart is, it has public access from Broad Street. There's a little tiny bit of trail access from High Street, but essentially it is sort of behind the Roach Brothers Plaza and then runs all the way over to Waterford Village and encompasses about 75 to 80 acres, somewhere in there. It's a beautiful piece of property. It's got, it was formerly a brick clay mining operation. It also served years ago as the site of the Plymouth County Fairgrounds, agricultural fairgrounds. Now, obviously, it's forest. The ponds back there are, I think we assume that those are clay pits that clay was mined out of prior to 1930, I believe, in that time frame. In any case, we are looking to make that park much more accessible and attractive and desirable. It's the closest park to our downtown area, so we're trying to make sure that we can improve that, try to make downtown living a more attractive opportunity. So essentially, as I said, there are 5 major components: improving and adding parking right off of Broad Street. We are looking to improve the existing trails and add new trails throughout the property. We're obviously going to have to add footbridges, as there's plenty of water and wetland on that property that has to be traversed. Put in a canoe launch, and then also create new trailhead locations and do interpretive signage throughout the park off of the trails. So those are sort of the 5 major components. I can tell you that we have submitted an application for Land and Water Conservation Fund funding. That's federal funding. So we don't do a whole lot of federal grants. This one fit this project perfectly. And the process for those federal grant funds application is to apply through the state. The state then recommends your project if it passes muster at the state level. And then once the state recommends it to the federal government, there's a 99.9% chance that you will secure some level of funding. So the total cost estimate on this project is $1.3 million. And we have applied for federal funding. We believe that our federal funding will be in the when it comes. We're 99.9% sure it's going to come, because it was recommended by the state. So we believe that when that funding comes, it'll be in the neighborhood of $480,000 to $500,000. So it's a 50% match, at least a 50% match. So so we have pegged the total project at $1.3 million, which is obviously far more than is necessary for the 50% match. However, it's a reimbursement grant. So with a reimbursement grant, we have to appropriate the entire amount of the project. And then when the grant comes in, it goes back to replenish the community preservation fund, out of which that in this case, that $1.3 million came from. So it's, it's sounds a little complex. It's actually pretty far more straightforward project, honestly, than the one you just passed. But I think it'll make a huge difference to the downtown as we move forward. So so that's essentially. Oh, I will add one more thing. There was some talk, and some of you may have heard it. We were attempting to incorporate a pedestrian bridge from what we call Town River Landing, which is right off Spring Street there by the BTV studios, over the Town River. That was going to be cost prohibitive for this round. That bridge alone, very rough estimates were in the $3 million range. And we also had an issue as to where we could place that bridge. So we did not, last minute, we pulled that piece of the project out of this request, and we're still going to search down ways to get that bridge built, but for this project, we cut that out. So that is essentially, yeah, that's essentially it, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Michael, quick question. You mentioned Town River Landing. That's going to serve as a canoe launch, correct?
There is a canoe launch currently at Town River Landing. It's not in very good shape. Part of this project will be to clear out and improve the canoe launch specifically, and possibly add parking in that area as well.
Yeah, I know when in Town River Landing, just for folks that might not necessarily be too familiar with it, we came up with the Town River Landing, I'd say probably a decade plus ago, and it served a purpose, but the area that it's in off of Spring Street near BTV Studios, more people knew BTV Studios was there than they did Town River Landing, so it kind of, and unfortunately fell by the wayside. And it'll be nice to see it be redone over and be part of what would basically be the town's parkland system. And that's sort of a big thing too, because that's been a long time coming, and that will be a bigger attraction on that side of the Styles and Hart area. And hopefully might, if we do put in new parking area there, hopefully that'll make the area in the neighborhood a little more attractive as well.
Yeah, I've hiked that whole area out there, and I've attempted to use that canoe portage there too, and the river is shallow there. But that area back there is surprising how big it actually is back there, and there's a lot of land back there that can be. Do we ever fill the position? I know we were looking at one point somebody for the parks. Has that position been filled, Michael?
Yes, we were lucky enough. So we've had two, we've had two changes in Parks and Rec. Jim Small has taken over for the retired Charlie Simons. We've also been able to hire a gentleman, I believe, by the name of John Hart, who has really dug into the parks and is doing sort of an inventory and an assessment right now of all of our parks. And so he's been a welcome addition, certainly.
Great. Thank you, Michael. All right, any other questions for Mr. Dutton on this? Any thoughts, questions?
Does John Hart work independently, or does he work for for a company?
Nope, I don't know. Unfortunately, I haven't met him yet, but my understanding is I believe he's retired.
From the fire department?
I don't think so, Julia.
Oh, okay, because I know John Hart that was a firefighter. That's why.
I could be wrong. Honestly, I could be wrong. As I say, unfortunately, I haven't met him yet, but I'm pretty sure that my recollection was he was retired and sort of is doing this as more of a fun job than whatever he was doing before. He may have been a firefighter. I'm
Okay.
not sure.
That's all right. Thank you. Just good. Just nosy, I guess.
All right, anything else?
The only other thing I wanted to add, Mr. Chairman, is that this project is really a good thing for the town, especially for parkland system, because this is one of the larger parcels of land in town that we have for park space. And knowing that there have been, multiple attempts over the years to help keep it in good shape and try to steward it, I am an acquaintance of the person who's actually one of the parkland stewards there, Mr. Bailey. And I know he and certainly Eagle Scouts over the years have done yeoman's work in keeping what they've been able to do with Styles and Hart to keep it at least attractive and traversable for people who are looking to go and take a little hike somewhere north of downtown. And with this project and this application, I think we realize a long-term goal that those stewards have visioned and those scouts have tried to help bring into the realm of the real for a long time. So hopefully the rest of the committee will join me in supporting it.
Okay, thank you, MJ. All right, anything else? Chair will entertain a motion then if we have no more questions, comments.
Motion to approve?
MJ?
Second.
Second from Rig, thank you. Josh, if you could do a roll call, please.
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion was approved.
Hey, thank you, everyone. We've been at it for a couple hours tonight. I thank you, everybody, for your great questions, for your diligence. It's important. So our next meeting, I guess, would be on June 29th. Is that correct, Josh?
Let's see here. So yeah, the town council meets next Tuesday. So then that's when they would refer items to the finance committee. So the 29th would be the next best date.
Okay, so let's tentatively plan on the June 29th, right? Yes, that's the Wednesday, June 29th. And I know coming in the future, I know that We may only meet once in July, if we meet in July, because I know sometimes the business town slows down a little bit. So for right now, I'm meeting again on the 29th.
And I have a commitment at 5 o'clock, but I'll do my best to be done by 7.
I know, Julie, you're the best.
No, I didn't say that. I do my best, I said.
You do, that's what I meant. Yeah, you always, I know, you try really hard. You're diligent. I love it.
Thank you.
All right, if we don't have anything else,
Thank you, guys.
Chair will
Thank you,
entertain a motion to.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second,
All right, the rush was in. All right. Julie and Ray, and Josh, if you can, thank you, everyone. Josh, can you do a roll call, please?
Nate,
Aye.
Julie,
Aye.
Susie,
Aye.
MJ,
Aye.
Rig. Rig,
He's gone.
Nice. He's
No.
Oh, there he is.
There
Oh,
we
there he
go.
is.
nope, second, it froze.
All right. Aye.
Aye. Greg.
I, oh, sorry. I,
thank you. The motion was approved. The meeting's adjourned.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank you.
everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
thank you.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Night,
Take
everyone.
care.
All right, good
Bye.
night.